Any excuse to wear this I can get, I will take. Hello friends and welcome to a new review, and today we're going to be reviewing A Star is Born. I'm joking, we're going to be reviewing Fantastic Beasts because I'm wearing a Harry Potter outfit. Obviously we're not, that's what we're doing. Now before anybody gets like all caught up over the title, I'm not saying the movie was trash. I'm just saying it wasn't fantastic, and like fantastic is a really high standard to hold yourself up to. I'm sorry, like there are a lot of fantastic movies, but in terms of like a year release schedule, you know, the number of fantastic movies are going to be minimal. And unfortunately, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, or Grindelwald, is not on that list of fantastic films. But like, bear with me. Let's listen. And if you love the movie, obviously there's no, like, I'm not going to be like, you're wrong, but like, I'm just going to explain my issues with the movie. Now, before I even get into it, I loved this movie. So before you're going to be one of those people who are like, oh, you just didn't like the first one, so obviously you're not going to like the second one, I love this. I thought that Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them did a fantastic job recapturing the magic of the original Harry Potter series in a unique and fun way. Obviously, the original Harry Potter series, we're learning about magic right along with Harry. It's this new exciting world for both the reader and the main character. It's very exciting, and it's just wrapped in these really awesome mysteries that keep people page-turning. And, you know, every book manages to be self-contained while also lending to a larger story that's going on, which is really impressive to do for something that spans across a child's lifetime and an age with the readers, and I thought it was really well done. Whereas this, we are now already familiar with the wizarding world. We kind of get a general idea. So from this, we're getting the standpoint of it from, like, New York, from America, from not directly in the London area, and we're getting all of these fantastic beasts that we've never seen or experienced before, brought to screen in an incredible way. Before this, all we get is Hagrid's kind of struggling with these really dangerous creatures, whereas you have Newt, who actually like truly understands these dangerous creatures and brings them, and it's just so beautiful, and his compassion and his empathy is great. I think Newt's a fantastic character. I love him. I actually really love this movie. Now, the sequel, Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, I don't know what happened, but the whole thing just goes off the rails. There is way too much just slammed into it. Now, for those of you who are worried about spoilers, I will not put any in the first part of this. I'll leave it later, and I'll probably do a second video where I kind of do an ending explain for people who really want deeper details but don't want to see it. But don't worry, it's all spoiler-free from this point out. The whole thing was just this convoluted mess. There was way too many plot points going on, and this is actually something I said in one of the trailer reactions, was it seemed like they were trying to put too much into it. But it's even worse than I thought it was. Like, everybody is all up in arms over all of the random little tie-ins that Solo threw in, like the unnecessary fan services that Solo threw in, but the stuff that's in this is even worse in my opinion. There are characters and things that are included in this that just 100% shouldn't have been included. And then when we're actually talking about the plot of the whole movie, that is also just this very convoluted, disgusting mess. There's just way too much going on for it to be one coherent story. And for, you know, my mind's like, okay, well, it's a middle part. They're going to explain some of this away later. Hopefully, that's not how you should write things. Like I mentioned earlier, Harry Potter was so great because there was just these mysteries that unwinded in the book, in the individual story. And Fantastic Beasts had that with Credence, everything going on with Credence and trying to figure out who the Obscurial was. That was a self-contained mystery that could have expanded into a further story, whereas this has all of these things that aren't, it's like nothing's a mystery in this. And for those of you who are going to get on my case about the couple of situations where there's like, you know, misdirection and clearly something that was said out loud that isn't true, lying to an audience and then getting to the next movie and being like, psych, that character lied. That's not a mystery with a response, because that's not something that the audience can conceptually solve, because you're not given any pieces of the puzzle. You're just left in a situation where you're like, well, that can't be true, so that character must be lying. Also, for a movie called The Crimes of Grindelwald, they didn't really talk about his crimes. You know, he committed some new crimes, but they didn't really talk about the old crimes. You know, at least with Voldemort, they gave you the big old rundowns. Like, this is a genocidal maniac, killed your parents, did all sorts of terrible stuff, then disappeared. This doesn't really have that. And like, obviously, Harry Potter readers know the general idea of what Grindelwald did, but this is your chance to expand on that. Now, one of the main things I really didn't like in this movie is that it broke one of the fundamental rules of film making, and not in a way that was interesting. Sometimes movies break this rule in a really fun, interesting, unique way. This wasn't that. It told us more than it showed us. There was so much exposition required to get people on board with the random things happening in this movie that there were just way too many moments of characters just being like, oh, so yeah, that person in this, and they're like, yeah, that person in this. Or just these incredibly long, drawn-out stories that, like, by the end of it don't even matter. So you wasted, like, 30 minutes of screen time on something that literally didn't end up mattering and left me with more questions than answers, but not questions in a mystery way, questions in a, like, whose idea was this? Like, I've never been a fan of David Yates, and I've honestly found that David Yates removed a lot of the magic from the Harry Potter series when he was bringing it to screen, but it's hard to completely blame him when I know that J.K. Rowling wrote the screenplay for this. I personally, this is not a rush out and see it movie for me, which is really sad because I thought this was going to be my favorite movie this year, or at least my second favorite. At this point, I didn't think it was gonna beat Infinity War, but when talking about Infinity War, that is a great example of how you can have so many characters on screen who have the same motivation but are just kind of going about it from different areas. That movie is a prime example of how you can do that well. And I think Fantastic Beasts is a prime example of how that just doesn't work because there's too many inconsistencies. There's too many things that never ended up coinciding together. There's too many things that counter our pre-existing knowledge of both the Wizarding World, the later Harry Potter series, and everything that goes into it. Like, there's just so many contradictions. Also, Credence is a terribly boring and uninteresting character, and I just don't care. I don't care. I don't want to. I want Fantastic Beasts. Any moment where there were beasts on screen, it was delightful, it was fun, it was charming. But at the same time, there were so many moments where there were beasts thrown in for no apparent reason. They didn't need to be there. Like, they didn't even serve, like, a greater purpose. They just incidentally served a greater purpose because they just added in a situation that didn't need to be added in. Not that I mind because it was great seeing them on screen, but it didn't matter. So it's like, I get it, they're trying to tie it into the title, but I would be way more interested about Newt struggling for animal rights. I would be way more interested in watching an entire, if you want to make an entire franchise about this guy, make it about his quest for magical animal rights. The Fantastic Beasts rights. Don't tie, I don't know, like, if you want to make a Dumbledore, Grindelwald, and all of that kind of story, make that story. And I guess if you want to tie Newt into it, you can, and you can probably still do it really well, but, like, focus on where the magic is. And honestly, like, there's things they could have done to make it better, but as it stands, it was just a dump of too much stuff that made no sense, that didn't fit together, that I don't know necessarily where they're going to go forward from it. And I feel like the only way to go forward from it is for the following installments to just be like, you know, everything that happened in that second one? Psych! Let's go forward with this completely unrelated storyline now. Like, beyond that, though, like Newt was fantastic. It's weird. I didn't want Johnny Depp involved in the project because he's Johnny Depp, not because I thought he'd do a bad job. He did a fantastic job. And Jude Law did a fantastic job as Dumbledore. I really liked him as a younger version of Dumbledore. I thought that was fantastic. I honestly liked the Nagini character. I didn't think she needed to be Nagini, though. I think that part was unnecessary, but just to have like that kind of companion there for Credence, I did like that. But overall, it just felt unnecessary. And again, just one of those things that's thrown in there. Basically, anything I'm mentioning right now is stuff that was visible in trailers, so I don't consider that spoiler. So Nicholas Flamel, pointless, unnecessary. The way that they introduce him could have still been there, like the circumstance. You didn't need to actually show him, though. I thought that was cheap and unnecessary. Jacob Kowalski was still great. Newt's fantastic. I actually really like the cast they picked for young Newt, too. I think he did a really great job. So it's definitely not an acting issue at all, in the slightest. The characters all did what they needed to do fantastically. Essentially, all the characters did a great job bringing what they were supposed to the screen. If they were one of the central characters, they did a great job doing what they were supposed to do. It's just the story they had to act out was severely lacking. So now I'm going to get into some of the spoilers. So if this is the area that if you are a Harry Potter fan and you want to go watch this movie and you don't want to know any spoilers, you just kind of want to know my general thoughts, that part's all done. I'm going into the cold, hard spoilers right now. Okay, the end of the movie The end of the movie, when they tell Credence he's a Dumbledore. Now, I'm pretty sure that has to be a lie, but that's another thing that annoys me. You can't build up that kind of deception to an audience that already knows where the story ends up years down the road. And I'm pretty sure it's a lie, but if it's not a lie, if there's some way that she is so convoluted in the story that she's now built, and she meaning JK, if she's so convoluted in the story that she has built that this seemed like a good idea to her, I'm out. And it's unfortunate because I do love Harry Potter so much, but that would have been the moment, like literally when I almost booed. I almost booed in the theater at the end of the movie because I was so flabbergasted that something like that would have even been suggested. Even if it is a lie, it's still a stupid lie. Credence is not a compelling character, and they aren't focusing enough on, like, I get it, they're like, he's the only one that can beat Dumbledore because he's the only thing that would be strong enough to beat him, but I don't even know if that's true anymore. There was this whole side story that they threw in about him being like, oh, you know, like, phoenixes will always come back to a Dumbledore, that you just throw in this movie in the beginning, and then you start showing this little baby phoenix all around, and it was so dumb. It's the dumbest thing. Like I said, even as a misdirection, it's dumb as shit. And that's what I'm saying. That's not a mystery, because that's not something that you're giving the audience pieces that they can be like, oh, wow, okay, that's what this was alluding to. Because if it's a lie, which it should be, if it's not a lie, this whole thing is bullshit and I'm out, and this is no longer canon to me, like Cursed Child is not canon, it's dumpster fire. You can't build up that scenario and then the second one say, psych. That's not a mystery, that's like blatant lying. Then you have all the stuff with Leta Lestrange, which I think that entire area was just so stupid. Like, the whole Leta storyline was pointless. It was, like, blatantly pointless. Like, they take all this time to do this weird storyline where they're alluding to the fact that Credence is actually a Lestrange, and he's this missing Lestrange child from some kind of poem. Like, what happened to the prophecies? Wouldn't a prophecy have made more sense in that situation? You've already established prophecies are a thing in the Harry Potter universe, and I get that, like, yes, the Tales of the Three Brothers was like a book, but it's like a parable written down to a story. That wasn't supposed to be a prophecy. That's supposed to be a tale of something that already happened, whereas this is like a prophecy, but it's in poetry form. Like, why? What the fuck was the point? And then that wasn't even what it was, so you have all these characters that are introduced for no reason, and then, you know, the dude that's Leta's, like, half-brother they talk about how it's, like, an unbreakable, like, blood curse or something. Like, I can't remember if they said it was an unbreakable vow or a blood curse or something like that. But then all he has is, like, a parasite thing in his eyes, so what was the point of mentioning the blood curse, unbreakable vow thing if it was a parasite? Who put the parasite in his eye? I don't understand. The water dragon, who? Whompst? And maybe they did explain it, but there's just so much going on in that movie that was already like 2.5 hours long that I still don't know what the point of half of it was. Leta's a Lestrange, and that's supposed to, you know, there's more Lestrange down the line, so why does this story have this huge thing about the Lestrange family line dying out? Because clearly it didn't die out. If Bellatrix marries Lestrange, it becomes a Lestrange. And it's like this long-standing family bloodline of Lestranges that are super dedicated to the Dark Lords. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And that's another one of those moments. If that's a thing where they're like, psych, somebody wasn't actually dead, that's not a mystery. It's blatant lying. And then, you know, not to mention in the first movie, I can't remember the exact quote, but when they're all in the suitcase and they're all taking care of the animals, and Queenie's unintentionally reading his mind, asking, like, who's Leta? And she specifically says, oh, Lestrange, you know, they don't have the best reputation, or that's not the best family, or something like that. Like, pointing out to the idea that the Lestranges are, like, a notorious bloodline, so that if there's a notorious bloodline, there's probably more than a couple of them left in existence. So why are you making it sound like there's, like, it's this, like, incredibly dying off bloodline that is just really pure blood? Because, like, they would have died off years ago. Like, where, I don't understand. I really don't get it. And if Leta's supposed to be that bad, she even says that, like, you know, she was a taker and you're a giver, it would never work. Like, why are you making Leta this super sympathetic character in this movie? And if it's, again, one of those things, oh, well, they'll probably explain it in the next one. No, they just make it like it's like they, you know, loved each other as children, and then Newt was just impractical, so it didn't work out between the two of them, and she ends up with Newt's brother instead. Like, there's nothing that shows that she's a taker or a bad person in any way that took advantage of their friendship. It never does any of that. I don't get it. Like, nothing in this movie made any sense, and it didn't make sense in accordance to this movie, and I don't know. It's stupid. Also, Queenie lost her damn mind. Queenie completely lost her damn mind. I don't know. Anyways, that is gonna do it for this review portion of Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald. Like, if you're like a huge fan, I know I'm not going to be able to stop you from going to see it, and a lot of you will probably really enjoy it because you're probably just not going to take it as seriously as I did. But pretty much everybody I saw in the movie with that cared had like the same sentiments. Like, Jen had the same sentiments as I did, so I know I'm not being like over nitpicky and ridiculous about it. There's actually some fundamental problems with this movie that very easily could have been solved by just removing entire plot points and changing things around. And I've never really felt that about a Harry Potter thing before. I've never felt like I would be able to write a better version of something, but with this movie, I 100% think that I could have written a better version of it. But that's gonna do it for today's video. Keep an eye out for the ending explained portion if you guys wanna see something like that. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all later.